How's everyone doing today? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 91. Today, my special guest is Tomm Nguyen from the amazing band Hawak. Bay Area, just crushing. Got to see him live this summer, which was like a bucket list thing for me because I love that band so much. Top 5 in the past, 5 years of newer bands. Just amazing stuff. The debut album was mind-blowing to me. Once I heard that, I had to go and see them live when they came around. So Tom's a humble dude. Got to meet him, chop it up a little bit with him so we can reminisce a little bit, talk about the tour that happened this summer, their debut album and everything in between, New Friends Fest, etc. So hope everybody's well, hope everybody's good. It's muggy as hell in New Hampshire today. Doing a little parking lot pimping again because my internet was wonky, so I didn't want to risk it cutting it up and stuff like that. But Tom should be coming in any minute, and like I said, I got about maybe 10, 11 more of these, and probably gonna wrap it up. Maybe I'll do one every quarter of a year, just to stay kind of relevant and relevant. I don't even know if that's the right word. But I'll probably be here and there trying to work on new things. Tom, I see you. I'll grab you right now.
What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Al? How you doing, dude?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Can you hear me
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect.
All right.
Sweet. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to chop it up with me and talk about, what's going on with the band and what you have going on. Thank you once again. I know it's a Sunday. People are kind of busy on Sundays and stuff like that, but I really appreciate it. And it's good seeing your face again. I know we saw each other like a month or so ago, but thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Yeah, I'm just I'm at work, so let me turn off my work phone here.
There we go.
Cool.
Sweet. Yeah, so thank you once again, and I appreciate it. Usually when I do these talks, I kind of go through the same questions I do that I talk with everybody about. And usually my first question is, what were you listening to as a young kid, and what kind of transitioned you into listening to like punk or hardcore, screamo, or stuff like that? What were you listening to before, and how did it transition into now?
As I grew up in the suburbs, and so I listened to a lot of radio when I was a kid. So hearing stuff like, I don't know, like Vertical Horizon, all that kind of crazy shit. Well, grew up a lot of that with like old 90s, the alternative that was on the radio, I guess, just like rock music.
Yeah.
And then I remember in middle school, it was, I got my first CDs and I got Korn issues, and then I got Blink 182, Enema of the State, and it kind of got me hooked. And I think that's led me down that path of listening to heavy music, and it got me into punk, which eventually got me into like more hardcore stuff and screamo.
Nice. What was kind of your favorite, like back then though, when you were listening to like the newest, like the older stuff? What was kind of your favorites that you listened to?
In terms of like just like punk.
The earlier stuff, the like radio stuff. What were you kind of into with like when you were a kid?
Oh my gosh, all those one hit wonders I thought was really fucking cool. I don't know, just something about it. It kind of like it drew me into that like melodic, just being on the radio.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to tell you like offhand what I liked. I listened to a lot of Santana, whatever
Yeah.
was on the radio at the time. Probably like Green Day was on the radio, and I think the earliest stuff that I really got into was that Korn CD. I listened to that Korn CD a lot,
Yeah.
and that Blink 182 CD got me hyped.
Yeah. Nice. Speaking of Korn, it's funny. I mean, I'm older than you, but I had listened to like the old school hardcore stuff, you know, like Youth of Today and SSD and like all the old stuff from the 80s. And it kind of died out for a little while, right? So I didn't listen to hardcore too much. And then all of a sudden it's funny you said Korn, because that first Korn album I heard, because I had stopped listening to, I didn't stop listening to hardcore, but it was like I was still listening to like Gorilla Biscuits and Judge and all that stuff. And then I heard that Korn album, their debut album, and I was like, whoa, this is like a lot heavier than the typical New York style hardcore and Boston style hardcore. And it kind of opened my eyes. I was like, wow, this is like really heavy. And that kind of pushed me into like the late 90s, like metalcore-ish hardcore that I got into when I was like younger. And that kind of, you know, as the 90s went on, late 90s, I started getting into like the screamo type of stuff, because I had seen Seisha for the first time and I had no idea who they were. And when I saw them, I was like, some kid was like, oh, you got to watch this band. And I watched them and I was like, holy shit. Like, I was very surprised. And there was a lot of bands like that. Jerome's Dream had played that fest, and Portrait from Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know if you've heard of Portrait, but like, just like really, really different bands, and kind of opened my eyes towards that genre of heavy music. So
Totally. I wish I was around during that whole thing. I always see like the footage that you post, and it's sort of it makes me sort of jealous in a sense, you know, like to have experienced that. I feel like I'm kind of going backwards. I'm starting to discover more like of the New York hardcore bands, or there's that East Coast hardcore. And so that was something I never really got too deep into when I was younger. But now I find that I'm listening to it more. One of my business partners is a huge fan of that stuff, so we'll put it on, and I'm just like, oh shit, this is sick.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to, you know, pinpoint younger people, but it seems like they think that just 90s hardcore or screamo stuff is just like kind of like the spin kick, hardcore, tough guy type of stuff. But if you really start digging into the crates, I feel like I was kind of talking with Amy from Obrea Sky today about it, saying like that's when the subgenre kind of exploded, and all different kinds of heavy, screamy hardcore started, you know, branching out, and all that different sound happened in like the mid to late 90s. And there's a lot of hidden gems that people don't know about. So, I mean, hats off to you for going back and you know, trying to find that stuff.
It's always cool. I think the what the 90s did really well was experimenting with different music and sounds and kind of combining it all. You know, like all the older hardcore stuff definitely like paved the way. And I think that's kind of like what's new and interesting right now, is that like people finding sounds and trying to mash it up. I think that's what I personally try to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like now it's very refreshing too nowadays. I mean, I'm 50 years old, so I've been listening to hardcore for a very, very, very long time. But I feel like the last 5 years or you know, 7 years, it's been a resurgence of like amazing scene wise for like the, you know, screamo, quote unquote, or power violence or grindcore stuff. There's so many new, fresh, exciting sounding bands now. I feel like it's almost like it was back in the late 90s and early 2000s. You know, on my take, that's what I'm taking it as.
I agree. I think I agree. A lot of I will say, a lot of like these older hardcore bands, I don't totally get, and I think I don't get it because I wasn't part of that community. And I think what I'm noticing now is that people are discovering this community and the hardcore, the punk, the screamo scenes are they're so wholesome, and there's it's inviting. It should be inviting. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's causing people to like come back in, and having, brand new blood and different different perspectives really adds to the music too. I'm hearing like really cool influences, and I'm just seeing a lot of excitement.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. The community feels like it was back then with the vegan potluck dinners, like during the
Yeah,
shows and stuff like that. It just feels like everybody, the diversity is coming back, and like it's just amazing to see, and I really love it, and that's why I've embraced it as an older guy. Not too many of us are still around,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah,
There's not too many gray-haired guys that are going to, screamo quote unquote shows now. So
totally.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to keep the fire alive.
I think it's super important, and yeah, it's really important to have all, I think it's easy for younger kids to maybe gatekeep a little bit and be like, what is this old head doing in the back? Like, why is he here? But, you start talking to these older dudes and they got stories, and that's so cool. And it's like, it's really interesting because heavy music is it's fundamentally rooted in just a lot of like raw emotion. So I think people can just take that surface level and then be done with it. But the people that hang in there and kind of see newer bands, I think that's is extremely important.
Yeah, yeah, and they're out there. I mean, especially Canada, I feel is just like exploding with new crazy bands too. And that's, I mean, it goes everywhere really. I mean,
I
Boston
think so,
has a
yeah.
bunch of good bands. California is exploding right now, and the West Coast too as well. Florida has some really good like new bands too. So I mean, I think it's going for like New York. Obviously, they always
Yeah.
have great new bands too. So it's like I said, the resurgence of hardcore and screamo and stuff like that is just really refreshing, and
Yeah.
it's great to see.
I
Um,
think I think as I start to see and interact with other communities, other scenes outside of the Bay, I think it seems like it's a common thing. Like I'll go to a show here in Oakland. There's a million shows happening, and sometimes I'll just see people that I don't see at our shows. There's like there are like there's an older crowd that only go to certain shows, and there's the younger crowd that only goes to certain shows. And I think it's always going to take that work to kind of bridge those two communities. I think it's important to do so.
yeah, definitely.
um, I just don't know what that answer really looks like sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when did you start getting interested in playing guitar?
I got interested in more playing guitar around when I was like 14 or so. Um, Before then, I was kind of just like I said, I was listening to the radio a lot, and my dad had a guitar in his closet, and I was curious about it. And then, uh, right around the teenage years, I started listening to heavier music, discovering that I had emotions that I couldn't really put my finger on or
Yeah,
words to, and playing guitar really helped. Just really helped me process those feelings at the time. And I remember in high school, I met with some friends, um, and we jammed in the garage, and it started to click. Before that, I was just playing covers or playing along to some songs. I was really big into
yeah,
Thursday at that point,
yeah,
so I remember doing the drop D tuning. We were in that garage, and then you know, we started playing some like Thursday song that we all were familiar with, and it morphed into that like, oh, we're just doing whatever. And I just
yeah,
remember getting hooked, getting hooked, and that feeling of excitement. This is new. This is wild. It took a hold of me, and yeah, here I am now.
Now, when you were playing in the those bands, were you doing vocals as well, or were you just playing guitar?
Just playing guitar. Yeah, there was a long period of time where we were just doing like we're just a garage band, just jamming in the garage,
Yeah.
and yeah, never really clicked to do vocals, and then at some point, I don't remember what point we did. It was the beginning of Matsuri, and then um, yeah, I just remember being like, yeah, why not just do some vocals and learning how to do vocals, and yeah, that is just another skill, another language to learn, I suppose,
Yeah.
to yeah, to like express myself, and that I also extremely addicting.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What was the first band that you actually played out shows, like real shows? You know what I mean?
Real shows,
Well, not like
define
I'm
real
saying like
shows.
I mean not like Battle of the Bands at the high school or something like that. I mean like kind of almost at like maybe even a basement show or
I
venue
see.
or something like that. Yeah.
So the precursor to Matsuri, um, was a band that we did called the Bloodshed Alibi. Oh my god! And we did a lot of like in the South Bay here.
Hmm.
We had this we had this production company called the K Productions, and then we were putting on like the metalcore type shows.
Yeah.
And I remember playing a show with Heavy Lolo, like
Yeah.
back in like 2000. It must have been like 4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that was wild. That was probably my first foray into shows. I don't remember which one was first, but just playing in that sort of environment, and that band eventually, morphed into Matsuri.
That's it. Now, did Matsuri do any touring or was it kind of locally just playing shows?
Yeah, we did. We ended up doing like a full U.S. tour, um, sometime early in the early 2000s. Chris would be such a better person to ask about this stuff because he is so much better at like just remembering these things.
Yeah.
All these things means a lot to me, but I have a hard time knowing the timeline of everything.
Yeah.
But we did do a full U.S. tour. That was really fun. We did a tour with another band from LA called Moldar, and so we went across the U.S., came back, and then we did a bunch of a lot of Pacific Northwest, a lot of just Southwest tours. Yeah, shout out to Chris Goff.
Now
But
with the full U.S. tour, did you make it up to New England, like Boston area? You played Boston
yeah,
too.
absolutely. I remember going into New York, a classic. It was one of those things. We took forever to find parking. We parked. We went and stayed in some like small ass apartment. The next day we come out, and there's a ticket on our windshield, and we're looking at the ticket, just being like, "Where did we fuck up? I thought this is like we're trying to read the signs," and some dude walks by and is like, "Welcome to New York," and just keeps walking. And I was like, "Oh my god!" Yeah, New England is. I think we went up to Maine,
Nice.
and then there was I want to say around like the Midwest or something. We did sort of like this weird, triangle thing. It was we were young. We knew that we wanted to go and travel,
Hmm.
and d- during that time you could just jump into a van and wing it.
Yeah. And how was that experience for you for the first time going across? I mean, was that the first time you visited all the places in America?
Absolutely, 100%. Like that was probably, before that I went to Vietnam,
Yeah.
and I went to Mexico, um, but I've never really seen the U.S. And I think it's important. I think as an American, it's important to travel.
Yeah.
It's important to go and meet people. It was just so fun. And just recently this Hawak tour, it's just, even though we only concentrated on a very small portion of the East Coast, it's still so important, and it still hits me. Like really, it's just so important.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what's some of the, your favorite places to play in the U.S.? What
In
was
the U,
like your favorite places to go? Like that you had a great experience in?
I think my favorite experience. Oh, this is a hard one. I think New York was super fun. That blew me away. I think going to Chicago, because we did ZBR, and then we flew back out to Chicago before going into the New Friends. Chicago, damn dude! Shout out to Chicago.
Yeah.
Chicago feels like the way that we play. We're typically pretty serious. Going to Chicago really felt like another home. Like
Yeah.
we played how we would play at home, and it just felt super friendly, and it really opened me up to thinking like, yeah, we're like a screamo band, but we don't like before this we try to be really serious, like this is screamo, this is serious business.
Yeah.
But after hitting up Chicago, I realized like, man, we are who we are, and I think people will kind of see that, and I'm allowing myself to let my personality be a little bit more upfront when it comes to playing out, and I think that it's cool.
Yeah.
So Chicago was big. That place is really cool.
Yeah, Chicago with Frail Body and Crowning and bands like that. I mean, they have a great scene too.
Absolutely. Oh, and probably after Chicago, the metal frat in Ann Arbor was insane. That is an institution, a disgusting, gross institution.
What bands played with you there?
Oh my God, that was stacked. It was Indisposed, Frail Body, Nuva Oscura, and Snag, and us. And if insane show. The attendance was interesting just because it was the metal frat, So we had just like, I imagine mostly college kids who didn't listen to this music was there.
Yeah.
That show, I feel like if it were anywhere else, might have been like that. That show was bonkers.
Yeah.
It just happened to be at Metal Frat.
Now, is there footage of that online, like on YouTube or whatever?
I want to say I saw something, but I saw more photos from Metal Frat, and yeah, I think I only saw photos and maybe like little snippets of like little clips people shot.
Yeah, yeah.
But absolutely banging show. That show was really cool, and then I think what really made it for me also is the experience of staying at Metal Frat afterwards.
Yeah.
I think Indisposed made the right move and like went and found a hotel, and the rest of us tried to. It was a survival. We were in survival mode at that point.
Yeah. Nice. So how did Hawak kind of get into the fold of things when your other band ended? Was that the next band, or did you get into something else after Matsuri?
So Hawak, so Matsuri broke up in like 2012, 2011 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And between that and Hawak, I don't know. I honestly was trying to hold on to that feeling of playing in a band. I was trying to like continue making music.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bunch of jamming with people. There was a bunch of I did a project where I played guitar. My partner at the time played bass, and Josh, who plays drums in Hawak, was playing drums. It was called Renee, super short-lived. We played like in LA. I think we released a demo. We had like a whole record recorded,
Yeah.
but we never finished it. And after that, the band broke up because me and my partner broke up.
Yeah.
After that, it was pretty tough. I played some solo music. I got to a point where listening to heavy music wasn't as important to me.
Yeah.
And so it was just a lot of soul searching, wondering why I was doing what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
wondering what I liked about, hardcore music.
Yeah.
And then John was playing in Lear. Lear broke up, and then at some point we just decided to like jam. And I was like, oh, hey, I know a drummer. Let's start that up. And so that became Hawak, and then we recorded that Lift the Mist demo.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. It just felt cathartic, It's one of those things where it made sense. like you put the guitar on your body, you let your hands do whatever they do,
Yeah.
and it just made sense. It's like a hard feeling to describe, and I'm glad that happened because I think it helped us to push a lot of other things that maybe were in our minds to the forefront. Like
Yeah.
with Matsuri, I mean, my other projects, I definitely wasn't leaning into my identity as much. And with Hawak, I felt really free
Mm-hmm.
to lean into my identity and talk
Yeah.
about things that just were vulnerable for me.
Yeah.
And so I think it made sense and it just worked out.
Yeah. Now, the Renee stuff, will that ever see the light of day, or is that just is that hidden in the vaults forever?
Oh, it's we talked about releasing stuff. I'm sure I've sent it to some people that were interested about it. Part of me is just like, part of me really wanted to finish that. It
Mm-hmm.
just felt like very personal, very open-ended thing.
Yeah.
And then, but at the same time, I want to respect all parties involved.
Yeah.
And I think we just were not all on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we'll necessarily ever be on the same page, which is unfortunate, but it's all right. So probably not.
Yeah. But is the demo out on? Like, can people hear the demo?
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
out there.
yeah. The demo actually has John on the cover, and what's it called? I want to call like it's Renee. Renee, I mean, I can probably drop you a link or something.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's that demo is out there. I think it was like 2 songs. It's fucking cool. Like I'll listen back to it, and it encapsulates a very interesting part of my life.
Nice. Now, was Hawak? Did you guys begin as a 4-piece? Because I always see pictures of four people in the band.
Yeah.
When I saw you guys live, it was a 3-piece. So what went on there without getting too whatever? I don't know what happened.
So Hawak actually started out as a 3-piece.
Okay.
This lineup right now is the original Hawak.
Mm-hmm.
So that Lift the Mist demo was recorded as a 3-piece with John playing bass, me on guitar, and Josh playing drums. And then at some point we added Ben to play guitar. And that is the lineup for Nook. That was the 4-piece. And then at some point, Josh took a step out of the band, so he had to figure out a new lineup. And so John, having played drums in other projects, he played drums in Matsuri, played drums in Lear. He stepped in to play drums because it made sense. It was easy.
Yeah.
And then we had a bass player step in, And then without totally getting into the nitty gritty, it was just like a bunch of things that didn't quite work out. We played as that lineup for a while. We played some shows. We even did a recording. And so there's the Cube is out with the it's like that six band
like
split.
yeah.
So those two songs that we recorded was with that lineup.
Yeah.
And then that lineup didn't work out, and so Josh was just like, "Hey, I'm down to like help you guys out, with whatever," and we're like, "Oh, perfect." And so it reverted back to this original lineup, and so we're trying to figure out our next steps. It's interesting, drummers, dude. He's like in like 7 million bands, so we just got to figure out where it fits.
Such a great drummer too, like an amazing drummer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's footage of that 4-piece, and was it Fresno?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. That was like and all these lineups are very different, very different. I think as a 3-piece, it feels so different. It feels honestly like more aggressive. Yeah. Sour Milk, yeah. Shout out to Sour Milk.
Now, as of right now, you don't want to bring in another guitar player, right? You're kind of happy with what you guys have going on right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I like it as a 3-piece. It's hard. It's hard just because for me, I know, like, and it could just be because, like I have sort of high standards for myself, of course. So it's a lot of space to fill. So that's the tricky thing with a 3-piece. But I do like that as a 3-piece. There's room for people to put in their creative, ideas.
Yeah.
And there's something about this lineup, just with Josh on drums, John on bass, and me on guitar. There's something really angry about it that wasn't captured as a 4-piece. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think personally I would like to just see where this goes. I think after that tour, we've kind of just like, we're a little bit on autopilot, and we're trying to figure out our next steps. Yeah.
I know. So, after the tour, did you kind of, have time to, obviously you guys went back to California, played more shows. So I mean, you didn't really have time to rest right after you had gone through all that, breaking down. And I mean, getting to Alston in itself was a huge, there was a lot of trials and tribulations just to get to Alston that night, which I'm sure that wasn't the only bump in that tour. But like I said, once you got back to California, did you have time to kind of, take a step back, breathe, and like figure, are you in that mode right now, kind of just taking a step back and trying to figure out your next move?
Yeah, after tour, honestly, I've been sad as fuck, dude. It's I think I mean, this is being on tour. That's not my normal life, like I'm pretty introverted. But being on tour, you're sort of like with your friends pretty much 24/7. You're meeting new people, you're experiencing brand new things. It's really exciting. It's really, really quite amazing and special.
Yeah.
And so trying to shift gears back home and like, going back to work. I own my own business. And so going back to my normal life has been hard. And I just miss a lot of people that I've met. I miss a lot of bands that I met. I mean, honestly, all those bands that I got to play with, I looked up to. because they're amazing bands. They're younger bands. A lot of it I'm starting to get into, and seeing them play live, it really, like, I'm transported back to a time where I'm young, I'm seeing something, and I'm feeling something.
Yeah.
And that's really cool and really special.
Yeah. I mean, the lineups that I saw y'all play this summer was like incredible. Y'all played with so many amazing bands.
Dude,
It's wild. Like
uh,
me looking at the lineups, I was like, wow, just incredible. I mean, New Friends Fest alone had, you know, uh, you couldn't get any better than that, honestly.
New Friends Fest was insane. And all the shows afterwards, they were like bands that I've never, like they're bands that I really wanted to see live. I was blown away by. There were bands that, like, I've seen their name, never really heard of them, blown
Yeah,
away.
yeah,
Yeah, that show at O'Brien's, like all those bands, fucked me up. It was so good.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and so I think now um, we're slowly kind of getting back into normal life, and we have to kind of figure out what our next steps are going to be
yeah,
um, in terms of a band and what we want to do. I was so inspired with that trip that there's a bunch of things I want to do. It's just figuring out my time and what I actually can do.
yeah, yeah. And the great thing about that tour too is you guys all escaped COVID, which was like mind-boggling to me because everybody else got COVID, like that you were all around with too. You guys are like, we're still safe, and I'm like, how the hell are they still safe? I can't believe it. Like, you guys really went unscathed with COVID on that tour, which is a blessing.
Yeah,
How'd that work out?
I think it was the shield of weed smoke that we had surrounded ourselves in, or something. Like, I wish I had an answer, because yeah, like, we we were with a bunch of bands that were exposed, a bunch of bands that tested positive for COVID,
Yeah,
and tour, I knew, like, that was the risk, um, and I saw bands that were I saw bands that
powered
were
on.
just playing it super safe, masked up,
Mm,
and they still got COVID. I saw bands that just been on the road for a long time, no mask, whatever.
yeah,
They never got COVID, or it's, yeah. So it's like, part of it is a little, I don't know, like, unexplainable, and
mm,
yeah. I mean, I'm advocating for being safe, and um, I'm advocating uh, for being smart about what we're doing.
yeah,
But it is also in a weird time. I think that because we fumbled our response in the early stages of COVID,
yeah,
we're sort of just, I don't know, we're neck deep in some weird shit.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I wish I could tell you.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to
I,
schedule myself a booster.
Yeah, I was happy to see it though. Honestly, really, I was happy to see that you guys were, unscathed through that whole tour. It made me happy because it gives me faith that bands can actually go on tour and not stop it. You know what I mean?
Bro, it was insane. Like, now when I recall these stories, um, it's crazy what happened. Like, we were stuck in Canada, and we somehow still made it down to that Boston show. I don't know. Things worked out somehow, and yeah, I'm very lucky to have experienced that.
I mean, me and you were going back and forth, and I was like, "Are you guys gonna?" I was like making sure that you guys were gonna make it because I was driving down from New Hampshire, and like honestly, I love those other bands. New Forms. I've known Justin from New Forms for years and years and years. My old band had played with his old band
Oh,
Alexa,
okay.
and stuff like that. So I had no, and like he's from around my neck of the woods too. So we've gone to like a billion shows together and stuff like that. But just seeing New Forms alone and what they're doing now is like incredible, and I'm always pushing them too, because Mary and Justin and the whole band is just a bunch of great people.
Dude,
And I
that
wish them
band,
nothing. Yeah.
yeah, that band blew me away. Like that was one of the bands where like I've seen their names in some spots, didn't really know who they were, and then seeing them live, I was just like, what the fuck? This is incredible. The whole East Coast experience, I was just like, y'all got some bands, and the drives are sick. um, it's definitely, now that I'm back home, it's definitely just looking at like our landscape. It is really hard to do these West Coast tours because of the distance and where we are right now with gas prices and everything. It's hard to justify a trip.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, California, I've talked to many people where, you have one show and then you're driving, 5, 6 hours, sometimes 7 to the next show. And in the East Coast, it's a little easier because, not that anybody played Manchester, New Hampshire, but Manchester to Boston is only really like a little less than an hour. Boston to Providence is like less than an hour.
Yeah.
New York from Providence is like an hour and a half. I mean, it's like you can hit up shows. Philly's not too far from New York, so it's like it's kind of quick up in this side of the East
Absolutely.
Coast.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to go back. And yeah, I can't wait to go back. It's super. I mean, the way I like to travel nowadays is also like it's my vacation. So there's just spots that I would just want to spend more time with.
Yeah, definitely. I know on tour sometimes it's just like the show ends, you're racing to get to the next
Yeah.
gig. You know what I mean? So I understand definitely. I wanted to speak on the debut album and how Zegama Beats kind of got involved. I mean, Dave Norman is an incredible guy. I mean, he's taken over in the past like 10 years. Like he is the new level playing. I think he's almost surpassed level playing with like the releases and stuff like that. But he is the new level playing. Just amazing releases. He knows everything about every new band. I mean, the guy is just a genius at what he's doing. How did that all happen? And I mean, me listening to that debut album, I fell in love as soon as I heard it. I was like, holy shit. And it takes a lot to impress me. And y'all is definitely in my top like 3, 5 of the newest bands from the last 5 years that I've heard. So I want to say like hats
Thank
off
you.
to this release.
Thank
It's
you.
just amazing.
Thank you. It happened pretty quick. I think David heard our demo and pretty much just asked what we were doing for our next steps. And yeah, that release was difficult. I think David is incredible. I think more so he is on top of like so many different bands from all over, and it's not just like, it's not just majority of them is, from the East Coast, and he's got like a couple bands here and there. I feel like he's got his hands in like all everywhere, which is super cool. So I love David. He's a great dude, and the passion and love that he's puts in, I wish I could just give it back to him tenfold.
Yeah. He's also rooted in all that old school like screamo, like heavy stuff too. I mean, his knowledge of the music is just mind blowing, and I love listening to him too because he's so eclectic. Like he's just like a great personality. I was listening to him on a podcast that my buddies do, Ron and Matt. They did a must listen where he picked a band called Back When to listen to. I don't know if you heard that podcast, but it's just a pleasure listening to him talk about hardcore and old bands and stuff like that. And I could listen to him forever. I mean, when he does his YouTube things, he's like a funny guy. He's very just a great personality.
It's great dude. He interviewed us, and I have to admit, I just don't have the depth of knowledge and experience that like David has, or even again Chris has just, you know, there's something about getting into punk and really digging, and I just never got super deep. I had some, you know, like I got into what I liked, and I kind of stopped, you know.
Yeah.
And listening, we did an interview with David, with John and Chris. Is sort of, I was like, you know, because we're all friends. We're like, hey,
Yeah.
let's just do this thing. You know, he asked us about this thing, and it was really fun. And there was shit that like David and Chris would talk about where I'm like, this is so out of my,
Yeah.
I have no idea. You know, like, yeah, it's cool that they have such depth into that community. I'm jealous of it.
Now speaking about the debut album, the reception was great, and everybody I feel loves that album. Did you expect that reception from that album? Because I feel I haven't heard one bad thing about that record at all, and
Wow.
it's just so amazing. What did you feel when it came out? And was it a long time coming? Because I heard little snippets of it took a while to actually come out.
Yeah. I, yeah. So personally, I didn't think too much of this record, you know, just because we took some time to write it. So obviously, a lot of the songs on the demo were were on the record. So we had written some. We had the demo songs, and we had started writing some new songs. And then we were getting Ben into the fold. So I remember it took a while to get all our pieces together and recorded. And like, for me personally, like I mentioned, it was sort of this new avenue of me sort of leaning into my identity, and the struggles that I was having,
Yeah.
just in my own personal life. Feeling proud to be Asian, feeling proud to sort of be in a threshold of, you know, whatever. And I feel like for me, sometimes you have these, you know, you have like your punk rock, and you have, you know, hardcore, maybe, and for whatever reason, you don't fit into either of those things. You exist somewhere in this middle ground.
Yeah.
And so that was heavy on my mind when we were writing these things. And I could not have predicted the response that we got. And of course, you know, like listening back, it triggers so many memories of like the struggling of like, oh, what do I want these parts to sound like? What do I want these songs to sound like? There are things that I hear that I'm just like, I wouldn't have done that now.
Yeah.
It's just a trip. And I think, I don't know, we put a lot of work into it, and the reception that we've got, it just makes me feel good, just because knowing how much work that we put into it. I don't know if I would do it the same way again. I probably wouldn't, actually, just because it, everything from writing it, and recording it, and was great. The pressing of it, we wanted to do a lot of things ourselves, because I just had like an idea of like, okay, like I want the cover to be silkscreen. So we had another studio silkscreen our covers, and then when we pressed the records, the first pressing, like the test press, it sounded pretty good, and then when we actually got those records, I was not happy with it. And so as an artist wanting to put something into the world, it felt weird, you know, like icky to be like, well, I'm not 100% on this, and like didn't even feel like 50% about this thing.
Yeah.
So why should I charge people like money to get something that like not even half my heart is into?
Yeah.
And so we still have like a bunch of these old pressings in my garage in the basement. So that happens. We decided to press more records, with another
Yeah.
pressing plant to get something that we liked, and so we went through Pirates Press. Originally, I wanted a U.S. company to press the records.
Yeah.
That whole thing fell through, and with COVID and everything,
Yeah.
it just kind of came out the way it came out. So it was just a hard thing to do, I suppose.
Yeah. And
But,
Jack Shirley, you work with him on that album.
yeah, I
How
love
was that?
Jack, dude. Jack is the best, dude. I love Jack so much. And I think I think it kind of aligns with this. Like as I start to go, as I do DIY more and more,
Hmm.
I realize that there's like things that like I'm not gonna, either I am not gonna be the best at it, or one of us is not gonna be the best. And in order to get the best result, we should have somebody else do it.
Yeah.
And so something like, the way that we approached when we recorded the End Ship record with Matsuri, we recorded that all ourselves. We had Jack master it. And then I was just like, you know what? That's cool and all. I'm glad we did that. But we don't have great recording gear. We're not great at recording, barely okay at mixing it.
Yeah.
But personally, I'm like okay at mixing. So it's just like, we just need to have like a professional do it.
Yeah.
And so, and Jack, I've just worked with Jack for so long. I trust him, and he does a great job capturing a sound that I have in my head. And sometimes I'll go, and it helps to have Jack be like, why do you do it like this? And it's like, why do I do it like this? And I always get some like nugget of knowledge when I go record Jack. He makes it very easy for me.
Yeah.
And see, even lately, like now we go in, and I used to fret about all these mistakes I'll do.
Hmm.
And with the last recording session that we did with the songs that we put on that comp, we recorded it, and Jack was like, how'd you feel about that take? And I was like, I felt pretty good. There's some mistakes, but I don't really want to do any overdubs. I think
Yeah.
I can live with this. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just stuff like that is so worthwhile for me.
Now, speaking of Jack, did you see Comadre a bunch of times when they played out there all the time? I mean, I'm
So
jealous.
many times, dude.
I only got to see him once up here in Derry, New Hampshire, but it must have been amazing seeing them a bunch of times.
Amazing seeing them play. I remember the first time I went to see them play. I had like classmate was just like, oh hey, I actually know those dudes because like I don't know, like he grew up with them or something like that. He grew up with the drummer, and so I remember going to see them at Gilman, a super small crowd, and then it was just years of seeing them play, years of playing with them. It was so fun. It was so cool, and when I look back at it now and think like, how do we get that level of like involvement? And I really honestly do not know.
Yeah.
Like I look back and they're like, kids are singing along, kids are crowd surfing, kids are so respectful, and the scene now is really great. But like Comadre got those kids moving. They got them like screaming words, and I just sometimes I think like how do we get back to that?
Yeah, I mean the energy in the East Coast. I mean, we're talking about New Hampshire, which I mean, New Hampshire had a good scene in the late '90s, but we're talking about New Hampshire in like mid 2000s, and I don't know if you've seen the video that I posted that I took of the show in Derry. But I mean, there's kids like singing all the lyrics and stuff like that, jumping around, and the energy and the aura of them playing live was captured in New Hampshire as well. So it seems like anywhere they went, they made the crowd like involved in what they were doing.
Totally. Yeah. The energy was palpable for sure. And it's rare to see that. Even with like really established bands here in the Bay, you go to their show, it could be fucking packed, and people are watching. The energy is there.
Yeah.
Maybe there might be a pit or two, but something that Comadre did is sort of really special.
And I feel like they don't get enough shine too. I feel like that band doesn't get talked about enough for what they did and what they put out. They're very underrated in my opinion,
Yeah,
and people should talk. And the people that love them, love them. But I mean, the
yeah,
people that don't
yeah,
really know about them should dive in and really, you know, take them in and
yeah.
feel what they were about, because it's an incredible band.
The prolific band, you think about like a band that really embodied DIY,
Mm.
and Comadre is definitely a band that I'm just like they were DIY, like they obviously recorded stuff themselves. It doesn't hurt that Jack is in that band,
Yeah.
but like like doing festivals, like collaborating with hip hop artists or doing like a mixtape. I just felt like they did something that was super unique and is really rare. I don't think they're like the first band to do it, but they definitely was a band that, like I said, just encapsulated DIY.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I feel the tour I saw when they came up here with Graf Orlock, which I'm announcing right now. I'm talking to Justin in a couple weeks. He's my next guest from Graf.
Justin, yeah, love Justin.
Which I'm
Sweetest dude.
amped on that too. That was a great show for me, seeing Graf Orlock and Comadre up in New Hampshire. So just I don't mean to sidetrack our
Yeah.
conversation about amazing bands, but and,
Justin is awesome. Justin is like the nicest guy with the heaviest riffs. I don't know how they're
yeah,
so aggressive and so heavy because he's like the nicest guy.
yeah, I'm stoked on that conversation too. I wanted to speak a little bit more on the tour, and was there any like bands that you kind of remember besides like new forms and stuff like that really you mentioned you didn't really know about, you heard the names or something like that? What bands stuck out in this past tour that you kind of wanted to go back and listen to? Either they had a demo or they had a release or a 7-inch or whatever. Was there any bands that kind of stuck out in your head where you were like, wow, like I need to listen to this band?
New forms really stuck out to me. That they're just so heavy and aggressive, and it like very much in line of what I loved. And yeah, I've never heard their music before, and seeing it live, I was really blown away. And they're so sweet. Other bands, I mean, there are so many bands that like I was really into, and I was just excited to see them play live, and I was, blown away by seeing them live. A Love Supreme was really awesome. I really wanted to catch Dreamwell. We stayed with Justin, but I really, and we met. I think I met all of them in separate situations. Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
but that was a band that I've really been excited about, that I wanted to see. We didn't get to see them, but specifically bands that I've never heard of that really blew me away. New Forms is definitely the one that sticks out to my mind.
Yeah.
They're killing it.
Definitely.
Great.
I can't wait for a new recording, because I think their old recording had a different singer, and now
Okay.
Justin and his partner, she's on vocals now, so it's like a new dynamic. And I love the old stuff, but I really, really am into this new form of this band. So I can't wait till they record. I guess they're recording in the next couple months, and they want to do kind of almost like a full length though. So they're trying to work on newer songs and stuff like that. But Justin, on top of being a great guy in that band, he's also a great artist as well, and he does a bunch of like horror type shirts and stuff like that he makes his own designs with too. And so if anybody out there, I mean, I'm giving him a plug, but anybody out there looking for cool like horror style shirts and stuff like that, he's a great graphic designer as well, and just a great artist. So
yeah, that was a hard question, because I tried to listen to a bunch of the bands before going on the tour. But yeah, so New Forms was one that I just didn't really listen to, and I was so blown away.
Now, is there any? Are you guys working on any new songs now? Is there any new songs in the fold for Hawak right now?
Yeah, we did a lot of we were we have so many songs and ideas that we had recorded. Um, it took like the touring really the touring and lineup change put a lot of that on the back burner.
Hmm.
I'm starting to like mess around again and to write new stuff. I think the desire to write new stuff is there.
Hmm.
Um, the That's why we're trying to pause on playing so many shows.
Yeah.
So we just need to get together and think about what we want to do after. And honestly, it feels like it's silly, but I feel like scared to write new stuff.
Yeah.
Um, just, I feel so grateful that people really related to Nook,
Hmm.
and it's so well received. At the same time, that makes me really nervous.
Why? Just because you have to, you feel you almost have to outdo that release in the same
Yeah,
process.
it's expectations, and
Yeah.
like for me personally, I'm just like, oh, that's scary. I think looking at like who I am, that certainly like makes me it causes a lot of hesitation. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll pick up a guitar and I'll play something, and I'm like, I like that. I'm gonna record this. But then knowing that I'm gonna record it stresses me out.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, I just gotta practice this more, and then I'll record it later. And then I never get around to it, or
Yeah.
I forget the thing that I did.
Yeah.
Um, I have to remember. I think I just have to remember that like this community is so loving and wholesome that like I think they are gonna embrace whatever I put out
Hmm.
or write, and and ultimately I think that's what it's got to be about, is having fun, with your friends, and then putting your all into that. I'm just putting a lot of stress on myself.
Yeah. Now, it must have made you feel really well to kind of dive into the Vietnamese heritage in this album. I mean, not is water in Vietnamese, and I mean just the samples and stuff like that. It must be very special that you could put that out for yourself. Now, is everybody in the band, are they Vietnamese? I know there's Filipino background as well.
Yeah.
So, how did
uh
that feel putting that out? I mean, as a personal, you know, on a personal level, how did it feel? It must have felt great.
it felt great. I'm actually the only Vietnamese member of Hawak. um and yeah, like I said, you know I never really leaned into identity or politics of that nature
Hmm.
on my other projects. Um, and for whatever reason, it was really important. It's very important for me at this time to lean into it. And
Yeah.
so, um, you know, I put a lot of samples that kind of stuck out to me. And um, like my parents are refugees, and they don't love talking about it.
Hmm.
I'm sure it's triggering for them.
Yeah.
And so it's been a really it's been a it's been personally it's been a really great journey into that conversation. And I learn more and more about stuff. It turns out there's a lot there to explore. I wish there was more exploration when I was younger, in terms of like my parents talking about it, or
Hmm.
talking about it in school, but it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. It was good to I loved getting into that and listening to that. It's definitely like something interesting that I was really drawn to, and I'm kind of glad that it got put out there by you. And
Yeah. I think, you know, punk rock is inherently already very political, right? It's like such a counter culture.
Hmm.
And uh, what I'm starting to learn, even though I'm 35, and I'm still finding out that representation is so very important. And you know, it hasn't really, it didn't dawn on me that punk rock was so like the representation of Asians in punk rock is really small. Like I said, I grew up in San Jose, so it didn't really dawn on me like that it was that such a small representation. I remember like seeing other Asian people. I like I can, you know, I feel like I know pretty much all the Vietnamese punks that exist in San Jose.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really important for me to kind of voice that, and and the reception has been quite amazing.
Yeah. Now I'm kind of switching gears right here. Being from the Bay Area, were you a hip hop guy? I mean, were you listening to a lot of Too Short or E40, or were you listening to the legends of hip hop in the Bay
Oh,
Area?
bro, I wouldn't say that I'm like a hip hop head, but I mean I'm so into R&B. I listened to a lot of R&B radio when I was young. It's something that I still continue to listen to. And that culture out here is great. In Oakland, it's awesome, and I try to incorporate that more into what we write.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I like I said, I'm not like the most. I'm not a hip hop head, but I definitely have experienced it as a child. I think it's hard to not experience it in the Bay.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Loonies was like a big band too, from the Bay too, for me, because I'm a huge hip hop fan. You know, more '90s style. I mean, obviously there's hip hop acts that I like now that kind of sound like that old school style.
Yeah,
So I have my hand in it all. On top of going to all the hardcore shows and being in bands and stuff like that, for me, I had gone to a billion hip hop shows as well, and filmed hip hop shows too. So,
dang, hell
uh,
yeah,
so I listen to a bunch of different things too. I listen to, a big new wave '80s guy. So I feel where you're coming from. I love R&B as well. I love Motown. I'm not always just into like heavy music. I'm
yeah,
always branching out and listening to everything, but hardcore and screamo and just heavy music itself, it's just the most special to me. And
yeah,
that's why I'm doing these talks and stuff like that, because I've always been involved. I mean, my first show was in 1981 as an 11-year-old in Boston. So, I mean, it's almost been 40 years of going to hardcore shows and stuff like that. So it's been a long run for me. You know what I mean?
I
And
think yeah,
seeing Hawak was a bucket list thing for me, because I was so into the debut album that I was like, me talking to you through DM and stuff like that, I was like, I can't miss this band. So if they don't show up, I'm going to be crushed. You know, that's why me and you were like going back and forth. I'm
yeah,
like, oh, you
trying to
guys
make
gonna make it? You gonna make it? Like, it's
it
just,
was it was scary. It was definitely scary. We got it. I don't know if I told you, we got into like a car crash. We were trying to get
yeah,
out of the border. It was a whole fucking thing. And yeah, I think it maybe we need to talk more about. I mean, I think this is it's important to have people involved. All involvement is really important. Not just musicians, but artists, people. Like just having this conversation is important,
yeah,
because I think it illuminates all the nitty gritty, the things that we don't talk about when it comes to music and culture, like getting paid as a touring musician, or
yeah,
the the hurdles that you have to overcome when you're on tour. And yeah, that night was pretty stressful. We had to get out of Canada with no vehicle, and then someone was nice enough to give us a ride, and they got into an accident, wrecked their car. It just
And then your rental overheated as well. On top of that, didn't
Um,
it?
it was so what happened was someone was nice enough to give us a ride out of Montreal.
Yeah.
And on the way out of Montreal to we were trying to just get to a car rental spot.
Yeah.
We T-boned somebody who it was so on them. They came out of and made a left turn on like a freeway, basically,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is insane.
Yeah.
Um, and so when we T-boned them, it crushed the radiator. And I didn't think about that at the time. We drove off. We're just like, you're in the mindset of like, we have to get to this
Yeah, we
spot.
gotta go. Yeah.
And the car overheated like 10 minutes away from the airport. And because we were only 10 minutes away, in Burlington,
Yeah, Burlington, Vermont. Yeah.
Vermont, and it's a small little town.
Yeah.
And so no cabbie wants to drive someone for 10 minutes out there. Oh my God, it was wild, but we made it.
Yeah, that's crazy. And on top of that show, it was just like this shirt is very special to me. Like very humbling. I mean, like I know it's a long sleeve, so it's a little hot in New Hampshire right now, but I'm gonna rock. Fall in New Hampshire is great. The leaves start changing. It starts getting cold, so I'll be rocking it a ton. But
we were trying to think of ahead. We're like, okay, we should get people ready for the fall maybe or something.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, California's a little different. I know it's a lot.
It's perfect all the time. It's perfect all the time, bro. After I got back, I was like, oh yeah, things are really nice. We had a heat wave, right? A heat wave.
Yeah.
It was basically one really miserable day.
Yeah. Now it's dry. It's drier out there. It's not as humid as it is over here. Is that right?
Yeah, it's real humid out in the East Coast. Someone mentioned, someone caught me just like freaking out about the humidity because it's different out there. The heat hits different with all that humidity. But I mean, yeah, I had a blast. It's beautiful out there, and I feel I would be an asshole to say like our weather's it is perfect for the most part. It's perfect. We just got to deal with some fires every once in a while, whatever. I guess.
Yeah. Now, before I don't want to keep you for too long. Usually, I always do the rapid fire at the end, but I wanted to talk to you about the scene out there, and can you tell me about some new bands that need to be like talked about that maybe some people haven't heard? I know Great Walls is a great band from out there. Is there any other bands that you would like to talk about that people might not have heard of that need to check out from the scene?
In the screamo scene specifically, Great Walls is great. I actually just met them recently, because I was from San Jose. Brahm is out there. Wince, I think, is doing some really cool stuff. Younger bands. There's a lot of hardcore bands out here in the Bay. So Sui is really great. XIU, it's Vietnamese for bad luck.
Yeah.
My homie Danny is doing the vocals. They're killing it. Went to a show. It was popping. I think those bands have been like really big on my like the Bay Area bands that people should check out. There's so many bands. There's just so many bands.
Yeah.
That's off the top of my head, I think.
Now what's that band that it's is it pronounced Hawak? It's H-A.
Oh yeah.
They're
sick. Super rad. Hellish Inferno. Also, Danny is in Hellish Inferno. They're sick. Repo Man is really cool. There's so many very good bands in the Bay. There's a million hardcore bands. Hawak, I checked them out. I was just like, who is this band that like looks really? They're so sick. I absolutely want to play with them. There's someone it's not my idea because I saw it on the internet, of course. But there's it would be so sick if we could get like a show that was like Hawak and Hawak, and then like Frail
Yeah.
Body and Frail Hands, and
Yeah.
bands that have really similar names. I think that would
Yeah.
be so funny.
Yeah, that would be awesome. You need to make that happen then, definitely.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
All right. Well, like I said, I don't want to hold you up too long. I know you're at work and stuff like that. So we'll get into some rapid fire. And usually the first question I always ask is, what is your all-time favorite band from up in my neck of the woods in New England, like Massachusetts, Connecticut, Providence, Rhode Island? You know, who's your favorite? It's got to be not just hardcore punk, screamo, could be anything.
Right.
But who's your favorite band from up and around here?
My favorite band, my favorite band, that the one that really influenced me a lot. Welcome to Plague Year. I don't even know where they're from. They're
Oh,
from
they're
like
from. I think they're from like Philadelphia.
Philly. That blew my mind. That band continues to be a huge influence to me. Daniel Striped Tiger, I really like.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're from
and
around here. They're from
yeah,
Massachusetts. Yeah,
Massachusetts.
yeah,
Amazing, amazing work that really spans all sorts of different sounds. You know, they got really artsy with it, which
yeah.
I fuck with that. That's so cool. You know, City of Caterpillar is a big influence for me. But yeah, those three bands, I think those three bands are sick. I recently listened to Transistor,
Yeah.
and I actually know Matt comes to the shop, and we work on his guitars, and that was super. That band is amazing.
Yeah.
Akimbo, is Akimbo from out there?
No, Kimbo, I think, is down a little more south. Transistor is from New Hampshire, my
Yeah.
neck of the woods. Nat and they kind of evolved too, because if you listen to that first release on Level Plane to
Mm-hmm.
the last release, they I mean, obviously they went through a lot of member changes and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but from beginning to end, that band put out a great catalog of music.
So cool. And Nat is so sweet. Nat is a big sweetie. I listened the latest, the one that was, what was their, what was the one with, I listened to the one that is the more pop, not the most recent one. It was the one, I don't remember the albums. This is where I fail as a human. I'm not great with album names or song
yeah.
names.
It was probably when Brad from Wolves, and actually Brad was originally the bass player for Orchid. He joined Transistor, so it was probably in that you know, lineup that you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. Sounds about right. Yeah, those oh, you posted what was that band? They did oh, I can't think of that. You've been posting some fire clips, dude, and
Thank you.
it definitely it reignited a bunch of bands that I've been revisiting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of mentioned, I feel like I fell off for a long time, and I was questioning why I was listening to heavy music, and seeing the things that you post, it really like ignited a big fire of like, wow, these bands are like really good, and they were doing something really special, and it really it transcends time.
Yeah.
As cheesy as that sounds, but like I can watch these videos and just be like, holy shit, I'm connecting with this video even though I wasn't at all involved. I'm you know, yeah, just incredible stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I think that's why I'm doing this, is just to have people open their eyes a little bit. Maybe they had listened to it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and then I'll post something, and then they're like, oh, shit, I forgot about that band. Maybe I'll just go back and listen to, like, this album that I used to like. And then they find it again, and they're like, why haven't I listened to this for 15 years or 20
Totally.
years or whatever? And that's what I'm kind of trying to do, and also for the old heads, I'm trying to talk to newer bands to open their eyes about new
Yeah.
bands. So I'm trying to do both. I'm trying to go from one
Yeah.
end to the other, which I
This is,
really, really love doing.
yeah. And like I mentioned, this is extremely important, like that your involvement, it's not just bands. It's not just, the people like shooting photographs or recording. It's people who can like, it's all this involvement to bridge those worlds. Like the Fuse and Run. I saw that clip and I was like, oh shit, great fucking album.
Yeah,
Front to
such a
back,
great band.
incredible. Incredible. Oh, I
And,
got goosebumps.
and anybody listening to these bands, not just self-promote, I mean, shameless plug for me, but I've talked to Nat on here from Transistor. I've talked to Kerry Joe and Larry from Welcome to Play Gear. I've talked to Chris from Light the Fuse and Run. I mean, any of the bands that we're talking to, if anybody wants to see these talks that I've had with these amazing people as well, go to my YouTube channel and you can watch all those things too as
Yeah.
well, because I'm just trying to talk to people that I really love and I'm inspired by their music and stuff like that. That's why it was so important for me and you to connect. And when I met you, I was like, I mean, I had talked to you beforehand about talking, but like when we met face to face, I was really like, we need to do this, whether it
Totally.
be a month from now or 2 months from now or whatever. It's very important for me to talk to you.
Thank you so much for asking me. I think it's really important work, and it's inspiring to see the clips. It's inspiring to like, even just dip my toes back into that scene. There's bands that I've never heard of. You're inspiring me to like revisit albums that meant a lot to me that might not have, they're like not like a huge band, but someone like the Fuse and Run. I listened to that album so much, and I hadn't listened to it in years, and putting it back on, just be like, wow, there's so much there that's incredible, and it's influencing, and it's inspiring, and I think that is important for bands to like remember, is that there's great things that have happened, are happening, and you just, whatever gets you inspired.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing too is with the younger crowd, maybe the teenagers in the early 20s. I don't want them to be closed-minded for, like you were saying, a lot of people are like, oh, there's the old heads over there. They don't know what's going on nowadays, this, that, and the other thing. But, I mean, I don't want them to lop the old style of hardcore and screamo together, saying like, oh, this was that or this. You really have to go back and dig in the crates to find what the subgenre exploded in the late 90s. And then the 2000s, there was so much different heavy music. I feel if you're really digging in the crates for stuff, you can find hidden gems that you might not have, you might have a bad taste in your mouth if you're a younger person and you feel like, oh, they didn't know what they were talking about, or they don't sound like this, or, X, Y, Z. But I feel like if you really go back and try to find some hidden gems, or talk to somebody like me or Dave Norman, for example, we can steer you in the right direction, and maybe you'll like something that
Totally
will open your eyes.
Yeah. I think it's important that people, that have experienced it also, it's like, why do I need to do the crate digging when I could talk to you, or I could talk to, someone sitting in the back at the show.
Yeah.
They've experienced all this stuff, and they can put you on to something just fire. Just, you're like, oh, it would have taken me like months to find this band, but I'm talking to you, and obviously like there's so much common thread. And so
yeah. I agree. I'll keep going. Like I said, sidebars are always happening,
Totally.
but it's all right. My next question: what was the first punk hardcore show you attended? Your first real hardcore show. What was the first one you attended?
I think I went to go see Under a Dying Sun at that was super cool. I remember telling my dad about going to a punk show, like some other punk show, and he's just like, that's the devil's music, you can't be doing this. And I was like, oh shit, I gotta go.
Yeah, you're like,
and yeah, that really blew my mind. It was a weird time, you know. I was in high school, so I'm dealing with like being a teenager, and I think I was walking around, and I got egged, like someone threw an egg at me, and
really?
so yeah, it was like a bummer, but like Underdyne was great, and Shay was just like she like spent time to talk to me, saw that I was covered with like an egg, and was just
Yeah.
like, oh hey, and I was hooked. After that, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't need to be listening to these big bands
Mm.
who, like if I went to go see Blink, I am just a speck in their crowd.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
here it's like it's a community, and it's sort of geared to take care of one another if we wanted to.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Underdying Sun is one of my favorites too. I got to see him a couple times here, and they did an acoustic set in Lawrence, Massachusetts, with the assistant who did an acoustic set too, on top of
Oh
their regular set. So it was really like, uh, I'll be posting that soon on my YouTube. But like seeing that
yes,
was wild. Was really wild, definitely. Which it might be up already on my. I'm old, so my mind isn't where it was. So it could possibly be up already. I don't know. There's so many videos up there, but I'll go to my next question. My next question: what was your all-time favorite show that you played personally? Like what stood out the most to you? Like a personal favorite show that you played.
Metal Frat. Just the venue, chaotic. The people, chaotic. The experience, chaotic. The after, staying there, it's gross.
Very memorable then. Yes.
It's super memorable, but it's one of those things. So it's like, and I think maybe because like having done Matsuri, you're. I feel like every punk band experiences the punk house, right?
Yeah.
You've experienced that. Oh man, and I gotta take a shit in this toilet that's barely functioning, I guess. And you kind of get that out of your system, and then you're like, maybe you're over it or whatever. And
Yeah.
so now, like being a 35-year-old and putting myself back in that position where I'm just like, man, do I have to do this?
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know, it's grounding, and it's disgusting if I think about it, but it's a memory. Like obviously I
Yeah.
remember it,
Yeah.
and it honestly doesn't really matter because I got to spend time with friends. I got to spend time with like brand new friends that you're forging these friendships,
Yeah.
and that was super cool.
Right.
And the turnout, whatever, it didn't matter anything to me because I got to see some killer bands in a very small spot, and it was cool. Yeah, it was super super cool.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. That's awesome. My next question: what was your all-time favorite hardcore punk screamo show that you attended that you didn't play? Like that you went and saw that was like the best for you?
Um, it was the Portraits of Past reunion show at the Gilman. I love that band. Never saw them. Um, Yaphet Kotto was supposed to play. So there's like all these things. There's like weird drama happening. I think Kamadre played that show, um, and just the. I think that would probably that. I've been to festivals before, like
Yeah.
small punk fests.
Mhm.
It wasn't like a festival, but it was a big enough show where people were like flying out from you know all over the place to come
Yeah.
see the show.
Yeah.
And so knowing that people came from all over the place to come see a band, and that energy that was there that night,
Yeah.
it was insane. It was wild. I just vivid memory of just being part of like this this surge in the crowd where bodies were being lifted by who knows what, just like each
Yeah.
other. Insane. Loved
Oh,
it.
jealous. I'm jealous of that. I never got to see Portraits of Past. Never. So I'm jealous of that.
I'll
That's
try to
something.
make.
Yeah, that's
We'll
something.
we'll start. We'll start. Well, yeah. We got to start talking to some people here.
Yeah, definitely. I always talk about I'm a big movie guy. I watch movies all the time, and I always ask this: what was the last movie you watched?
Oh God. Don't judge me. I've been in a weird depression slump. I watched uh, what's it called? Rambo 5 or something?
Oh, the newest one, the what is it called? Like Final Blood or whatever it's
Yeah,
called.
last dude, that
Last Blood.
bro, that shit was garbage, man. I was, like because I was sad, I was just like, I just need some like mind-numbing movie to watch.
Yeah.
Big mistake. I shouldn't have watched it.
It got so bad reviews that I haven't even gone into it. Which I love the first two Rambos, but
Absolutely.
yeah, I heard so much bad stuff about it that I couldn't get
It,
myself to watch it. Not yet,
it,
at least, but
it's so far removed. It's like being into Helmet and then listening to, you know, other Helmet albums. That Helmet album that, like you wrote about, whoever he dated.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I totally understand. Being on that same subject, I always ask, what is your favorite horror movie?
Oh, that's a good one. I really liked Hereditary. Um, that one that one was really good. The Witch was really good. Um, I definitely like gravitate more towards like those psychological thrillers.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I think the I think just in the most recent time, I think Hereditary was like up there. It's just so like it was so scary on a very visceral, like it wasn't like the goriest, but yeah, that it was just a really good movie.
yeah. I agree. I mean, in the past 10 years, that's probably the best horror movie that's gotten put out in the last 10 years. I mean, I thought I don't know if you've seen X, but I thought
I
X
haven't.
was really really good.
I'm gonna
That's
check that out.
I think Ty West is starting to become a really really good director.
Did he
So
he
X,
did he did Midsummer?
no, that's Ari Aster who did
Oh,
Hereditary, which is like have you seen that?
yeah, I saw Midsummer. I thought that was really good. Kind
Yeah,
of different,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I think I really liked Midsummer because it was like his idea got it was a really good like presentation of his idea. I think that's
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
House of the Devil.
House of the
I'll
Devil.
have to check that.
Ty West had done that before
Mm,
he had done X, which House of the Devil is really good too. But I feel like he's just getting better and better as he's doing movies. And also after X, he made a prequel of the story of X, which is like what had happened beforehand. Which I'll send you the link on that. I don't know if you've ever seen the trailer or anything like that. And also always toot the horn of this Asian film called The Sadness that came out. I don't know if you've heard that either, but that
yeah.
was very. I don't know. I like to feel uncomfortable with a movie, like making you feel uncomfortable because they're doing something that they're supposed to be doing. But this was the first time I had felt uncomfortable in maybe a long, long time. It's a zombie movie, which I'm like tired of zombie movies, but they did a really, really good take on it, and it's like really bonkers the way they did it. So I'll send you that link as well.
I need that list, Hal. I need Hal's list of horror.
I'll definitely hook you up because I'm always trying to find new movies.
Yeah.
So we'll keep going. My next question, like I said, I'm a big hip hop guy. So if you've been listening to hip hop lately, what have you been listening to, if anything?
Um. I listen to a lot of. I mean, I listen to a lot of different music. Um, some of the things that have really jumped out to me, the Little Sims. I've listened to like she blows me away. Um, I don't know if I guess you consider her hip hop? I
It's
mean,
in that vein.
it's kind of it gets in the vein
Yeah,
that kind of has been that is really blowing my mind. Yeah, so yeah, I think that has been crazy to me.
Nice, nice. And I
So
have two more questions for you. Um, my next question: what is your favorite song to play live, or a couple songs to play live? What are your favorite ones to play? You know what I mean? If you make the set list and you're like, all right, this is the one like that I definitely want to play.
oh man, it's that's an interesting question. There's there's songs that I'm comfortable with, and there's songs I really want to play,
Hmm.
and sometimes it doesn't line up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we because with like the lineup changes and trying to write new songs and everything, it gets to the point where it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to listen back to the recording to figure out how these songs go.
Yeah.
And if you ever sat in on like a Hawak practice,
Hmm.
it's sometimes it's just like, hang on, nobody play anything. Let me just see if I like even remember anything. Sometimes we just wing it.
Yeah.
Um, Dissenter is really fun. I really like playing Dissenter. It's hard. It's hard for me because there are things I'm like, I don't remember what I did, and it's tricky because we the way we write is wild, and
Yeah.
there are things where I'm like, oh, that's not intuitive at all. So if I'm trying to rely on just like muscle memory,
Hmm.
sometimes it's not how I remember. Um,
Yeah.
Dissenter is super fun. I think the song that I really, really love playing is Reliving. It's one of I think it's the first song on that 6-way comp.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really fun to play.
Yeah. Old Wounds is really really heavy too.
Yeah.
I love that song as well. And it's funny, like the demo. Um, I like those three songs, but I like them more on the new album.
Oh,
And
really?
those are some of my favorite songs, you know, of all time by y'all. And it just transitioned very well onto that album. I feel,
Yeah.
you know, Unseen and Realign and Overthinking. Those are some of my favorite songs of all time by y'all, and I feel
Yeah.
like it really transitioned well, you know, from the demo to the new album.
When I listen back to the demos, it's so crazy because it does sound really different on the album. Not only is it, you have a 4-piece versus a 3, and so I guess maybe to revisit that question earlier about the lineup, when I listen back to the demo, to me, it's so much more raw and aggressive,
Mm.
and maybe that's
Yeah.
kind of what I like about it. The Nuke album definitely has a different feel. It's very more melodic. You have two guitars that can contribute to melodic information.
Yeah.
Um, and the demo is raw as hell.
No, now feeling going forward, are you guys trying to, you know, what's the thought process? Are you trying to, is it just going to come naturally, or are you thinking like you want to get more chaotic and heavy, or you want to get more melodic, or like what's the thought process in you? What would you personally feel like? I mean, because honestly, when I saw you guys live, the dynamic between John and you screaming is just like amazing. I love that dynamic. His
Yeah.
bass sound is really, really good. I mean,
Hmm.
the videos that I posted that I took from you, a lot of people have commented on like just the sound alone sounds amazing. And we're talking about people that don't normally listen to like screamo music, like being
Yeah.
like, wow, this band is something real. So what in the future are you guys like kind of gravitating towards? Do you want to get more chaotic? Do you want to get more melodic, or a mix of both?
A little mix of both. I I always like I always like putting, you know, other genres uh, influence into my music.
Mm-hmm.
So I I do want to go into a heavier, a darker, more chaotic sound,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time, so like, for me personally, there are times where I'm like, I want to tap into that like classic 90s screamo, like the, like the drum stream kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Just that kind of chaotic and heavy, I want to like add more into. I have, like I said, I've been listening to like a lot more hardcore music, so there's more hardcore elements I want to add into our music, and at the same time, I do want to do some more melodic stuff. I've always liked post rock, so I like doing post rock parts. I like doing more of the melodic stuff. Welcome to Plague Year is really big to me, so that kind of like that going between these like very different extremes and trying to weave together those things is really important to me. I'm seeing bands like Crowning,
So
um,
good.
so fucking good.
So good.
They're incorporating like different ideas from like, I hear like hip hop things in their music, so I kind of want to try to cop that and and go down that road. I listen to a lot more electronic music stuff, so there are things I definitely want to incorporate, and just seeing like all these bands um, add in like noise or samples or different ways is super cool. So
Yeah. Speaking
kind
of
of eclectic.
Speaking of Jerome's Dream, they gave you a shout out the other day. I saw on Instagram they somebody was asking what newer bands they were into, and they said Hawak. That was the one band that they had mentioned. So
Bro, I
those guys are so nice too. I love those guys. So, but that must make you feel good. I mean, one of the legendary bands of screamo. Speaking, great words about Hawak. That
totally.
must make you feel great.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not one to like fanboy per se, but I remember seeing them outside of so in Oakland we have a practice space called OMC. Pretty, it's a studio that's used by so many people,
Yeah.
and I remember seeing them outside, and then we talked to them, and I was just like, in my mind, I was like, dude, just keep it cool, man. Keep it cool. Don't let it slip.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I was just like, ugh, you guys are great, dude. Ah. But they're really inspiring. Like, not only music-wise, but I think um, I don't hear it a lot, but I have to say, like, it's inspiring to see these guys take such a big hiatus and then come back. And as like even though we think of Jerome Stream as like, wow, they're like god tier, they're still just dudes trying to play music, trying to do what they love, and they're bound to just try different shit. And I think that's incredibly inspiring to me.
Yeah.
They have enough love and dedication to be like, let's try this thing. And I mean, I already find it's quite difficult as a 35-year-old, to like play heavy music.
Yeah.
So the fact that they've done it and now they're coming back into it and trying to do it in a very DIY way, I think
Yeah.
is kind of incredible.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the first time I saw them was a lot like we're talking late '90s, and I mean Jeff didn't use a microphone back then.
Yeah.
He never used a microphone. He just screamed, and you could hear his high pitched screaming above that loud music. And he was like a very tall man when I saw him, because I was younger, and I always remember seeing them live. And I had also seen him in New Hampshire with Reversal of Man and Assuck, which like that show was like one of my top 5 shows of all time. Seeing that lineup, just incredible. And then seeing the tour like you're talking about when they came back, and then they tried different vocals at the end of Jerome's Dream when they took that hiatus, and then when they came back, Jeff was screaming again, which was like unexpected, but that's what he felt was necessary to start screaming again and doing that type of vocals, which like is my favorite. I love the newer style vocals that they did before they had kind of taken a break, but now it's like you were saying, it's older guys that are still involved so much, and just want to play the music they want to do, and it just feels right going back to screaming, which
Yeah.
I love too. You know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
that band is just amazing.
It's amazing.
And being great guys on top of that as well.
Being really great guys. I think it's easy to look at it like as an outsider and be like, oh, they're just trying to do this thing, or they're trying to, just capitalize on this. Screamo is not glorious, So the fact that they want to do it, it should really speak volumes of like, this is what they're passionate about. And yeah, I think we need all that involvement to make Screamo a welcoming and inclusive community.
Definitely. Before we go, is there anything that you want to plug? I mean, are you in any other bands? Are you working on anything like that people should know about?
I own a guitar repair shop in Oakland called Wood Street Guitar Repair. I'm here right now in my shop. That has taken a huge chunk of my time. I was trying to do some other music, but really, I think Hawak it means so much to me, and so it can be a little slow for my personally. I find that it takes a lot of work. It's a little slow, but it's really worth it. So I can't say I'm in any other bands. Just trying to keep the business running, keep the band running, and keep myself, mentally running.
Yeah.
That's all I got, man.
Nice. No, I mean, I know you can't predict the future, but when do you think people will hear new Hawak music in the near future?
I think pretty soon, honestly. We recorded a bunch of stuff. We did record a bunch of stuff along with the 2 songs that we put on that comp. So we have some things recorded. I'd mentioned that we have just like a bunch of demos and a bunch of random stuff put away. So we're trying to write some new stuff. I know for sure John, the other guys, I think are open to it. So I think it's just takes. We all have our own personal lives. It's going to just take some time to like sit down and be like, well, what are we thinking about doing? There's been talks about doing splits, and so yeah, we just need to figure it out. I want to do some more touring as well. So there's been talk about going to Australia, or Southeast Asia would be sick. I've always wanted to play music in Japan, and I went to visit Japan for the first time ever right before the pandemic.